Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, congratulations on your debut album, Rodrigo. This is definitely a very big step, because it's interesting how musicians go through so many years of playing, but it takes a while for them to put the whole thing together. So it's beautiful. I love it. Congratulations.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Can I
Um,
introduce the musicians that play with me in that track?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So it's Misael Silvestre on piano, Pedro Almeida on drums, and Lívio Almeida on saxophone.
All
So we are
right.
all great friends from Brasilia, and yeah, I wanted to have them together in this whole album.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
great. And the mix is wonderful also. It's
yeah.
really nice and crisp and very clear. I like the mix very much as well.
Thank you. The mix was done by Thiago Gomes. That's a Brazilian engineer that lives in Texas.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I
And
sent the
who did
whole
the
thing
mastering?
him as well.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to everyone in the team. We also have a lot of comments on the, I don't know, can you see it? Some of them are in Spanish, so I cannot read them,
I
but
can't actually. I can't.
there is definitely a lot of nice comments that you are the best teacher, uh, and also I missed the yoga exercise before class to calm down the anxiety. Great time, Salgado. See you there. So that was by Camuel or Kimuel.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Yeah.
and Gilson was asking something about probably about credits. Not sure in Spanish. Great music, very nice to be here at company of Rodrigo family and friends. Says Carlos, and yes, a lot of miss you, Salgado, the best teacher ever. Hope to see you soon, Kimmel, as well. So very nice. Thank you everyone who commenting and watching this live stream. Who just joined. We are in two different time zones. We're currently in New York in EST 9:27 p.m. and Melbourne Saturday 12:27 p.m. next day, 15 hours ahead.
And in
So
Brazil, people that are watching in Brazil, it should be like um, you are 9 p.m. So they are gonna be 10:30
yes,
p.m.
they just an hour ahead of me. So
Then
it's like
there you go.
10:27 p.m. So
Yeah.
welcome for everyone. Guys, shout out if we haven't mentioned your country. If you're watching from some other country and it's not Australia, US, or Brazil, you can write it in comment and we will say hi to you guys. It's nice to have a very diverse audience listening to the music and to our conversations. So now, before we start going into musical journey and questions about you, Rodrigo, could you just briefly tell us how does Melbourne look in terms of COVID now?
Well, it looks quiet, and actually, now I'm able to drive around 25 kilometers from where I live. So 1 week ago, I was just able to drive or to walk in a distance of 5 kilometers from where I live. So
Wow.
yeah, the restrictions were really big, and of course, like you could go out just for like basic things like going to the doctor or doing the grocery, and so yeah, it looks quiet. And things are starting to open now. So schools are back, and yeah, things are starting to get a little bit more normal.
Are there any
That's
performances happening outside, inside? Absolutely no performances.
no performance since March this year.
Wow. So don't tell me that the performance we had was the last performance you had.
Maybe one of the last ones. Yeah, definitely one of the last ones.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. I was so happy to have you in the band as well as the other band members. It was a great playing at Lido.
It was, yeah, I loved your music, and yeah, it was great to be able to share that moment with you and the other musicians as well. It was a great
Yeah,
concert. Yeah.
thank you. So, Rodrigo, tell us a little bit about the beginning of your journey. So, as it seems, you're teaching a lot and you have quite a following of students. Um, could you tell about yourself being a student? How did you pick up the instrument at the very beginning, and what was it? Was it double bass right away, or was something else? Just a bit about the first steps in music.
Right. Well, I started when I was like 13, 12 on the electric bass, playing with rock garage bands like around Goiânia in Brazil.
Mhm.
And yeah, so from there, maybe when I was like around 15, 16, I started listening to jazz and getting into like more into that. And then when I was about like before going to college and having that kind of decision on, okay, I'm gonna do that for like for real as a for a living, or should I do something else? I met a composer, a classical composer actually, that became my mentor for years. And his name is, yeah, is Estércio Marques Cunha. He's a fantastic contemporary uh, music composer from Goiânia. And so that was definitely like a big thing about, okay, I'm gonna do that for the rest of my life, or for or for a living. And and I went to college. I moved to Brasilia, that's the capital of Brazil, to study composition, like classical music composition. Then by the end of my course, my degree, I was already like gigging and playing jazz and playing with cover bands and and making a living from it.
Mhm.
And after I graduated, I moved to Sydney, Australia. I wanted to have some time off and some experience overseas. And I was doing full time like music in Sydney, working as a bass player, playing just electric bass. And I started playing the double bass, kind of recent for a musician. It was 10 years ago
Okay.
when I went back to Brazil and started teaching at the Conservatory of Brasilia and electric bass. And then I kind of migrated to the double bass and I said, okay, that's fun. And yeah, so that's a little bit
So
of my journey.
acoustic basis for past 10 years.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Do you prefer any of those?
I'm playing more acoustic nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it depends on the situation. And I
Mm-hmm.
love playing electric bass, and yeah, it's
Sure.
depends on the day.
So your first degree was in composition, classical composition,
Yeah, it was.
and then what was the master's?
The master was in jazz performance.
Jazz performance. And you mentioned before we went live that you're going to do PhD. Could you tell about that?
That's it. I think to keep myself busy, the
Yeah.
lockdown. I applied for a PhD and got a scholarship to do it at the University of Melbourne
Mhm.
here in Australia.
Nice.
And so it's a PhD in jazz, and that's so like the end of the this process is gonna be an album,
Hmm.
and the focus is to study how I can like mix Brazilian rhythms and jazz influence. How can it work, and how can I work with time in that situation?
With time in terms of musical time, right?
Yeah,
Or
musical
you,
time. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it's been fun. I just started it, so I'm excited about the
So,
theme.
what brought you? Well, what brought you from composition studies to jazz? Was there anything in particular, or it just was all music and you were just wanted to experiment and learn it all?
Well, no, actually, I always had this close relationship to jazz, and even studying composition in college, I was always playing electric bass with bands and playing jazz. So it was something that was, and since the beginning, I think I wanted to use some techniques from classical composition to apply to jazz. I was always like looking for that kind of transition. And by that time in Brazil, we didn't have many universities offering jazz degrees or
Mm.
popular music degrees. You just
Hmm.
had classical music in 90% of the universities. And it was a kind of, I think, composition course by that time could embrace students that didn't want to be classical composers but wanted to study music and apply that thing in different directions.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Well, I feel like classical composition is a very good base for anything to move forward, because you learn the fundamentals and the history and things like that. Like in terms of music overall, it's definitely a very good beginning. Now, I want to come back to the mentor you mentioned. What was the quality you liked in that person? I forgot the name. Maybe you can say it one more time.
Oh,
That
yes.
Yes, what was his quality that attracted you to lean towards this profession and learn from him?
Um, Actually, that's a very good question. I never thought about that, but I think that the thing that most attracted me about Stairs was how respectful he was in terms of a student individuality, and how he would respect that,
Hmm.
and try to give you tools to express yourself. And yeah, that was something that really impacted me, and because sometimes you find like mentors that want you to play like that, or when you want to impose his own history to you, right? And it happens a lot, but Esterso, no, he was very respectful about understanding where you come from and where you want to go,
Hmm.
and kind of giving you like tools to follow your own way. And it was
Hmm.
very interesting to study with him, because we would not even like, sometimes some lessons we would talk about philosophy, we would talk about literature, or things that weren't really related with like technical aspects of music. And it kind of opened my mind to different things that I could think to express myself in music as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What the reason I asked that, because the whole theme of these talks is the inspirational aspect for other people, and I think it's so important to notice and acknowledge people who come into our life with a crucial meaning or transitional moment. We might not recognize that at the moment, but from the perspective of time, we start seeing how important that person was, and his or her contribution to the overall growth and development. And kind of stop for a moment, acknowledge these people, and understand what was it that they could offer, what really really helped us, and maybe try to use the same thing kind of to be that person for other people as time goes. And I'm sure maybe that would be actually a good pivotal moment for me to branch into your teaching. What do you think makes a good teacher, and how do you try to teach when you teach your students?
I think I try to combine this thing that I learned it from some of my teachers, about like respecting where the students coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time to be able to teach him, or to give him tools where he can use that to express himself, and not to, yeah, and be able to play the music that he wants.
Yeah, so
That's the I think that
individuality.
Yeah, I think so. That's the main thing for my teaching.
Yeah, and in general, like the theme of authenticity, that theme comes to my mind a lot, because me as I don't know, every decade has kind of its own theme, and as we grow older, we reevaluate things with time. And as like, of course, like 20s is very different from 30s. Well, I haven't gone to 40s yet. Can't say, but I can assume it's very different. um so like if we are practicing authenticity, things tend to unfold naturally. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think it comes to a time like for a musician or like that we are just hungry for information. We're just hungry for different ways to play and kind of acquire that to our playing. And I think it's gonna go forever like that. But the interesting thing is to mix that with your own history and and bring your authenticity to that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
to do that mixing is that just this whole process, and it's simple but it's hard. And
Yes, that's true. That's very good how you put it. It's simple, but it's hard. That's absolutely true. It's kind of like more we grow and time goes by, we keep returning to the fundamental things which are just natural and there, you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like I want to pinpoint that lovely painting you have behind you, which is drawn by one of your childs.
yeah,
So
yeah,
just kind of learning from children is going back to that learner's mind.
totally,
Yeah.
totally, yeah, totally, yeah. I have like two little kids here that, and I learn a lot from them every day.
Yeah, I teach some younger students as well. So it's definitely every time I have to rethink, like, yeah, practice that learner's mind, beginner's mind. It's kind of like even like a Buddhist philosophy where you kind of seeing things from not knowing it yet.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it's
right.
new.
That makes me remember something that I heard from a friend. I don't know. I don't remember who said me that, but that thing, that thought came to me now, and he said that, okay, when I'm practicing or I'm playing something that I can't, I just try to think how a child would would deal with it, and and I find it like very a very interesting way to face things. And like, and as you said, like some how a learner, like a new learner would deal with that, and how
Yeah.
someone that it's not full of experience yet and is trying to find himself in that world, how he's gonna be able to express himself and do that thing that it's a very interesting thing. And like watching my kids doing that at home, I kind of learn a lot.
Do your children play instruments yet?
They do. Oh well, we have crazy jam sessions here, but I'm not. I'm not teaching them formally. Just
Okay.
like playing around, making
Playing
them
around.
curious about it. And but I'm in a stage now that I'm looking for a teacher for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nick says that you also play drums.
Who said that?
Nick Oreg.
Oh, Nick. All right. Oh, he's a friend of mine. Well, to make myself busy in this lockdown, I have to refresh my brain, my mind, and I bought a drum kit.
All
And
right.
yeah.
PhD and drum kit. That's what musicians do during COVID.
I bought myself a drum kit. I played a lot of guitar. I was singing songs. I wasn't having much my mind into practice mode, like serious practice mode or working mode like most. I had to have fun, and so I bought myself a drum kit, and I think Nick is making some fun like of me.
Well, I'm sure a drum set is a lot of fun for you and neighbors. Now, I just want to go back to that musician theme. And for people who are listening, and for you and for me to learn about you, could you share a little bit about what it takes in terms of practicing. Like, how do you practice your instrument daily, or what is do you keep any routines, or like, I don't know, lists or practice journals or something you could share with people who are listening and also trying to get better at music?
Hmm. Well, I love that thing that about like learning things by ear, understanding it, and discontextualizing that from where it comes from, and putting it in different contexts. I think that's the how we do it in popular music generally. Like it can be jazz, it can be pop music, it can be like different styles. That's how we do, and so it depends on what I'm playing, like what gigs I'm doing, and so with COVID, without any gigs, it's kind of hard to make myself focused in a specific thing to practice. And yeah, so like for example, now I'm trying to work on some time things, and researching more about Brazilian music, like trying to get more a theoretical perspective about what I have been playing for all my life and listening to all my life, and trying to understand like how those styles got together and to to make to to be what they are now.
Yeah. Kind of
So
dissect them in different aspects,
yeah,
analyze them from the angle of different aspects, like rhythm
yeah,
and melody and so on and so on.
yeah. So like I think this practice routine it depends what a musician is living at the moment. Like for myself, it's always related to what I'm working, to the
Hmm.
gigs that I'm doing. So yeah, it's and of course you have all those things about like those basic things that you were saying that you're always revisiting that and how important it is, and I think the gigging situation put yourself in contact with that all the time. Okay, how I'm gonna improvise over those changes. Okay, I have to go back to this basic thing here to to get better in that specific situation, specific tune, or how I'm gonna be able to play with this drums, with this drummer. He loves playing like that, and okay, how can
Yeah,
I adapt myself to that? And because as a bass player, you are always having to adapt yourself to totally different situations in different weeks, like
absolutely. Yeah.
and it's great. It refreshes your mind. You're playing all the time, and we're always looking for learning and learning from the others. I think this COVID thing has been hard for bass players, uh,
I
because
can
we're not.
quote you. I think it's been hard for everyone.
For
Very much.
everyone, definitely. Yeah, I miss so much playing with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, New York slowly. I had actually first the only one public performance 2 weeks ago in New York, but it was socially distanced and it was 15 people in the audience at a time, and with
Hmm.
windows open and all these, cleaning in between sets. So we did like 3 shows per 2 nights,
Hmm.
but 15 people would come and leave and another 15 people would come. So it was nice to have a first public show, but it's still definitely, I feel the lack of normal performing where everyone can come, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's more people and you don't have to wear a mask. So I actually had to wear a mask while I'm singing. So that's definitely,
Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Imagine like singing with a mask. That must be.
Yeah.
Was the audience wearing masks as well?
everyone had to wear in the building. Yeah.
Everyone.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Musicians
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's gonna be a different world. Yeah. Actually, it is a different world, and
it is
yeah, we have.
already very
Yeah,
different.
it is already. We're gonna have to adapt to that. I think we're all learning how we're gonna do that. It's a it's a challenge, definitely.
Mhm. So, Rodrigo, now I want to go back to your life story. So, you are from Brazil and you also lived in Sydney quite a how long did you live in Sydney, by the way?
I lived in Sydney for almost 4 years,
Okay, so
between
you
2007 until mid 2010.
and now you're living in Melbourne. What brought you to Australia from Brazil?
Um, okay, my wife was like we were thinking about applying for PhDs, and so we had that crazy elections in 2018
Okay.
that Bolsonaro won, and we wanted to get out of Brazil for a while. So my wife applied for a PhD here in Melbourne,
Hmm.
and she got a scholarship, and we said, okay, let's do it, let's go, and here we are, and yeah, that's the whole story about moving to Australia second time.
Yes, yes. So, what do you enjoy particularly? Like, what did you enjoy in specific to Brazil's music scene and Australian music scene? Is there any particular characteristic you like in comparison?
Yeah, I think that the Australian music scene, at least here in Melbourne, is very diverse. You have many clubs having jazz every night. You have yeah, many live concerts. It's a very cultural city,
Hmm. I
and
loved Melbourne.
yeah, it's great. It's great, and so there are a lot like great musicians around. It's very it's very inspiring in a certain way. Lots of things happening. And the thing about Brazil, like I love the quality of the musicians there. They're great musicians everywhere that you go, and great music. And music's part of the culture. Like it's very intense.
Mhm.
So every bar that you go, you're gonna have live music on. And I think that the thing that I most appreciate about Brazil is how music is connected to how people live and
How people live.
yeah, I
Live?
think music
Yeah.
is yeah how, you know, how yeah it's part of people's life all the time,
Yeah.
and
And you
it's
also
a,
lived in the US because you studied there.
I did, yeah. I lived in US 2 times. Once as a foreign exchange student when I was in high school. I lived in California for a year in LA,
Hmm.
and then I went in 2006 2014. I went to US for 2 years to do my master's there.
Did
So
you
at that time,
enjoy
I
the
loved it. Yeah, it was great. It was great. Yeah.
So tell me now, this is like a very philosophical topic or question, but what are the things you love about being a musician, like as a profession? What are the main, maybe a couple of things would you admire about this occupation the most?
I think the thing that I mostly enjoy about that is how we are able to share
Hmm.
and literally share because we are sharing emotions there. Like when you were on the stage or rehearsing with the musicians that we're playing, you were always sharing and in a certain way always depending from the others. You depend from the energy and the music that those musicians are giving to you so you can play. You're depending from the energy of the audience so you can express yourself. So this sharing thing is very important. You're never alone. You I think music is a social thing, and
You're never
it's
alone. I love
yeah.
that. You're never alone. Oh, very nice thought. Yeah. If you know,
Yeah.
if you would have like an Instagram profile where you quote yourself like people do now, like Rodrigo Salgado, you're never alone. It could be one of
Sounds
those
good.
quotes.
Nice slogan, yeah.
So now I want to transition to your the record you released on August 1st. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah.
2020, August 1st. Somewhere we at the beginning of our podcast at our live stream podcast, we heard one of the pieces from the album. Guys, if you are not familiar with Rodrigo, go on Spotify and type Rodrigo Salgado or find him on Instagram. And website, I guess. What would be the website handle for your website?
My website's rodrigosalgado.com.
Okay,
That's it.
so easy.
www.rodrigosalgado.com. That's easy, yeah.
All
So I
right.
have
So
to do some changes there to upload some new stuff.
so we all um tell us a little bit about the idea of making your debut album, producing this record during COVID, and about the whole theme. Well, you introduced a little bit because you talked about somewhere, and somewhere is the name of the album as well. But now maybe in terms of the whole record and production behind it, could you share a little bit with us?
Sure. Yeah, so this album was recorded in 2019. Like two weeks before moving to Melbourne, we got into the studio and recorded the album in 23 hours.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
fast.
that's fast. So I wasn't planning to record this album. It wasn't there in the back of my mind at all. And but I had my trio with Pedro Almeida on drums and Misael Silvestre. And so when I announced that I was moving to Australia, they said, "Man, we gotta record this. We gotta record your music. We gotta um, have that moment that we spent together in an album or in a way that we can get back to that sometime in the future, or we have to yeah record this moment." And okay, and I said, "You guys are just crazy. Like moving overseas with two kids, I have to do all the visa and all the moving stuff, selling my furniture and 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 all that, organize this whole like new uh, thing that I would be living in a few months, and plus that I had no money for recording an album, but and I was like, okay,
Sounds fun.
yeah, and so I started selling some stuff, like, and I said, okay, I have some money here, let's make this album. So I wrote like I kind of tried to figure out what would be a good repertoire that could uh, express this transition, and I wanted to get some Brazilian songs that really represent Brazil in a way, some standards,
Hmm.
like for example, Santa Morena from Jacó do Bandolim, Naquele Tempo from Pixinguinha, uh, Assum Preto from Luis Gonzaga. I wanted to get some tunes that people know and from Brazil, and that I could show that overseas, like in Australia or whatever I would go, in my own way. And I also wanted to get some American standards that I like, that people would also know in Australia or in America, and and play that in a Brazilian way, in a way that I like to play. And so I wrote the arrangements, got some of my originals as well, when we did the recording, and we also invited Livio Almeida That's a great friend of mine as well, great saxophone player that lived in New York for maybe 10 years to join us for a few songs, a few tunes in the
Mhm.
album.
Mhm.
So the album was there. Like after recorded it, I recorded it in maybe February
Mhm.
2019. Moving to Australia, it took me a lot of time to put my mind in that set to finish the album in terms of mixing and mastering. So I sent and then I sent that to Thiago Gomes, as an engineer from Brasilia that moved to America a few years ago to do this work, and we were working with the difference of time, like time difference.
Yeah.
Okay, it was kind of new for me to work on that way, but it worked well. It took more time, much
Mhm.
more time to do the mixing because of this different of time difference between Australia and Texas, and but we it was fun. It was great fun, and it took me some time some more time to put the album out there. And yeah,
Well, good things take time. So we
they
have to
do,
be
they do,
patient, and
they do. Yeah,
everything comes on its own time. So that's great. I'm happy it's out. And actually, Jose is asking, how do you relate to bossa nova?
how
Do
to
you know
relate
who
to.
is Jose Veras?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As if Jose Vera is my uncle.
Oh, so do you
Yeah,
want to answer your uncle's question? How do you
yeah,
relate to bossa
sure.
nova?
Yeah. I think bossa nova is like in Brazilian culture. It's there, and it's something that I've been reflecting a little bit as actually in this last week, because it's so there inside of the music, like how people play bossa nova, and like how bossa nova is kind of interchanged with how we play samba nowadays, and how it it kind of influenced so much. I think Brazilian music is a different music after bossa nova, and how it influenced like the whole way that Brazilian musicians would play Brazilian, not only bossa nova, but like Brazilian music in a certain way. After João Gilberto gets in the scene with his way of playing guitar, it changed the whole thing, the whole way that we deal with accompanying, like accompaniment in 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 Brazilian music. And yeah, I love bossa nova. I love playing bossa nova. I love listening to bossa nova, and I think the whole world loves bossa nova. And yeah, so actually, I was telling my dad another day that it's so there inside of the Brazilian culture that you didn't even notice anymore,
Right. It is.
right? And yeah, it's I think yeah, bossa nova is my relationship with bossa nova is something that's just there. It's part of me in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. They even forget to mention.
That's it. It's so there that you forget about it in a certain way.
Yeah. Well, thanks for people who commenting. You guys have last chance for some questions if you have any questions to Rodrigo before we move to the final part of our conversation, which is another piece from his album. But before we go to, I have one last question. Can I ask you one more thing?
Sure.
Okay. So, life is just, it's, bittersweet. It has its ups and downs, and we transition from one country to another country, and then we have to sell our furniture and, you know, push through transitional and harder moments in order to perceive something new or open a new door for ourselves and our loved ones, and kind of create a new reality, a better life for ourselves and stuff like that. So I ask that a lot for people who I have on these conversations. We all have moments where it's really hard and we question things. Um, was there a moment where you felt like maybe musical path is not for you, or the doubt arised, and what helped you to persist and have the perseverance to push through the calling of being a musician?
I think like to be a musician is something that you don't really choose. You were chosen for that,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's something that I think those moments that you question yourself, it's good. They're good in a certain way because you change,
Mm-hmm.
and you change your way of playing, or maybe your way of um of facing your career as a musician, and you go to a different direction. And but I think, yeah, those moments are really productive in a certain way. And remembering here, like some of like sometimes that I had those moments. Like I remember, for example, when I went to college, for like when I was in my undergrad, in my first 6 months, my first semester, I was like, wow, okay, that's gonna be tough. I'm gonna I'm gonna have to practice a lot, and like and I'm gonna have to be like a music slave for a while. Like, so should I do I get on that direction? Do I that wasn't something that kind of a moment that I had to ask myself if it was the direction that I would take into my life. And also, like, financially, like after having my kids, uh, and and trying to find myself and like putting the bread on the table as a musician, and as a provider to the family, and it was sometimes like I questioned myself if that would be the best way, the best, like, yeah, to live my life, like in terms of a profession. But I think you go finding. I think on those moments you ask yourself, like those questions, and you kind of get in that momentaneous crisis of identity, and it's really good because you find a way to get out of that, and you find a way to live with that necessity of playing music full time, and and uh, and to adapt to your and adapt that need to your like real needs, like for example, like providing the family
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So like it's um, the best, like maybe answering directly your question is that you find a way, like to pursue your career, and and yeah, and live your life. It's a need, like to be a musician and to play music. It's something that it's a need. Like I don't see myself doing anything else.
Yeah, I love how you said that it's just kind of chosen for you. You don't really like, oh, should I be a musician or should I be A, B, C, D, something else?
Yeah.
It's kind of in there very naturally. Absolutely, I agree. Nick is here again, and he is asking. I know I keep trying to get to your album, but I want to answer the question if people pop in. So Nick is asking, who is your favorite bassist?
Uh,
Bassist one,
it's
yeah.
impossible to to answer that question. I have so many favorite bass players, and so many like names that influenced and still influencing my life. I think my favorite bass player changes time to time.
Hmm.
Someone that I always acknowledge is Ray Brown.
Ray
No
Brown.
matter no matter like where when like in terms of my lifetime, I always love Ray Brown.
All right. And Jose is asking, does your family have artistic roots?
Yeah, they do. They do. Yeah. Well, Jose is an artist. He's a painter, a great painter, and yeah, I love his painting and his pictures. I have some of his pictures, and my great grandfather was a modernist writer in Brazil as well. So I think this artistic um, vein is in the family for a few generations.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful question. And Chris also is asking, did you make any music? Chris Leal, or I think that's how I pronounce. Did you make any music in this album dedicated to your wife?
Actually, that's
That's a tricky question.
a question. Okay, I think there is when you have a wife or family, like kind of everything is dedicated to them in a certain way. But I recover remembering my wife recording this album, and actually, this there's a great story about it.
Let's hear
We
it.
were we were recording that song, "The Dance of the Clown." It's one of my originals, and it's a ballad.
Hmm.
It's a waltz, and I was recording like we did the first take, second take, and you were there like trying to find yourself, trying to um, there's a uh, maybe the longest bass solo in that album is in that tune. And I remember like taking a break and meeting the musicians like in the for coffee like outside of the recording room. And Pedro Almeida, the drummer, comes to me and say, "Hey man, for that solo, do it for your wife."
Oh, nice.
And that was like fantastic, fantastic what he told me. And yeah, and so that song and that solo is dedicated to her.
Wow,
You know,
that is a great story.
yeah, yeah, it is. Like I think those the way that you kind of try to find inspiration by like by your memories or by people that you love. It's great when you can bring that to your music and yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true and so real.
Thanks everyone who were asking questions. And now I would like to share my screen and transition to the last part of our conversation. Cheers, by the way. Cheers, Rodrigo.
It is, yeah.
All right. I'll have my tea. Being a phony tonight, talking about coffee conversations, drinking secretly tea. It's your fault because the had to adjust to Melbourne time.
Sorry.
No, I'm just joking. So guys, thank you everyone who joined us for this conversation. I would like to share one of the pieces from Rodrigo's album, and this will be we're playing the eighth, right? The last one.
Yeah, can I talk a little, just a little bit about
Yeah,
this tune?
yeah.
This tune I wrote when, like, it's called De Volta ao Rio, that in English would be Back to Rio. And I was born in Rio and spent my childhood in Rio, and we moved from there when I was 10 years old. So I have lots of roots there. Like, still have friends that I love that are there, families there, and uh, and after coming back from Australia in 2010, it was a long time without going being in Rio, and I went there to visit friends and family, and I wrote that tune. That melody came to my mind when I was walking on from Ipanema Beach to Copacabana Beach, walking, and it came to my mind, and I tried to look for something to write that thing straight away. And so like that music I did in 5 minutes, and
Wow.
yeah, so like I really like it's very spontaneous and none of those kinds of melodies that just come to you and you don't have to do much.
All right, let's hear it.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I love this one. I love this very much. Congratulations again on your album. Thank you so much, Rodrigo, for joining me on my weekly coffee conversations. I'm so glad we managed to work through the time zones. And thank you for everyone who are watching, who are asking questions, writing comments. And we have another comment. Professionally, is Brazil inspiring you? But there's no question mark. So I don't know, is it a statement or is it a question? It's also by Jose. So I guess you can talk to him after that. So so we are in Melbourne, Australia, and New York, United States, with 15-hour difference. These are coffee conversations which I'm hosting almost every week, and every week I'm inviting someone else, someone new, someone I look up to, someone who I think are very inspiring, and they manifesting the growth and the work through their lives and everyday practice. And next week, Friday, I will have a New York based singer songwriter from Serbia, Alexandra Denda. So we met with Alexandra at Berkeley, and she actually lives not that far from me here in the city. So I will be very happy and honored to have her. She is a wonderful singer and a friend. And we'll have a conversation at 12 p.m. New York time next Friday. And tonight we had Rodrigo Salgado, a Brazilian bass player, composer, arranger, and educator based in Melbourne, Australia. And it was lovely to have you, Rodrigo. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah, it was great.
It
Love
was
to
great. And
have
I'm
this.
hoping that after we can go back to traveling, I definitely will be back in Australia and we can play together.
Would be great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you guys. Thank you everyone, and have a good day and have a good night, who is in which part of the world.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.